Good morning, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you might be doing. We wish to welcome you to the Silverlight Show. The Silverlight shines to illuminate that which lies hidden in darkness. For those of you tuning in today, we welcome you in. Every so often, somebody brings up the idea of using prisoners, mercenaries, and even press-ganging populations into military service. Having served in the military, a long time ago admittedly, and with the recent example of what's happening in the Ukraine, I can say unequivocally, this is a terrible idea. I was fortunate enough to serve during the golden years, just before the Soviet Union fell, the Velvet Revolution as it's called in Eastern Europe. And I was in at a pretty good time. Things were going our way. We were still training hard, but at the same token, we knew the Cold War was pretty much over. It ended after my first year of service. Now, I volunteered. We are given a very favorable contract because not really many people want to sign up and go to the military. It's not really the most pleasant thing. I mean, in the movies, they show you a drill sergeant yelling at you and you doing a bunch of menial activities. And I hate to say it, but a lot of it is that. Because they have to teach you to react when your drill sergeant says anything. For example, duck. You want to be able to react to that one very quickly. So we were relatively motivated, relatively high morale, and we knew our jobs. My former brother-in-law grew up in Eastern Europe, in one of the countries where, mandatory conscription happens. Everybody, before you go to university, after whatever it is, you have to serve a year in the military. He couldn't believe I had volunteered, because they don't have that option. And, I remember when I was in the military, some people literally said, "Oh, I'm just doing this for a summer job." Again, we had very favorable terms. Those people scared me. We're going out on a mortar range, we're throwing grenades, we're doing stuff that is pretty freaking dangerous, and you're doing this as a summer job? Probably doesn't pay as well as a summer job, although we did get hazardous pay because we were considered in the field. But my former brother-in-law was very, I don't want to say bitter, but he would have literally rather been doing anything else other than the stupid stuff we had to do. In the middle of the rain, marching up and down the parade square, sitting in a trench with, wasps and bees and hornets all buzzing around you. It's not really the type of life that a lot of people want to volunteer for. And so forcing people to do that, well, you're kind of seeing the results in Ukraine right now. In World War II, the Soviets, were very effective because they had the NKVD, secret police, following behind with orders to shoot any soldier that retreated. Didn't matter the reason. Didn't matter if you had 1,000 Nazi soldiers coming at you, you were expected to hold the line, and they were there to make sure that you stayed where you were told. Now, let's take a look at Wagner Group. Wagner? I have no idea how to say that in Russian. These are soldiers for hire. They expect to get paid. They're motivated by money. We, once upon a time when I was young and foolish, had a bit of patriotism in myself. So at least I had a higher ideal. Whereas mercenaries get paid. If they don't get paid, they're going to walk off. They're not going to do their job. So you want to make sure your mercenaries are taken care of. Remember a month or so ago, the Wagner Group decided they weren't going to take their orders anymore because they weren't going to get paid. Yeah, that's exactly how their morale works. You pay me, I fight for you. It's not really a morale builder because there's going to be times that fighting is absolute shit. You're in a trench, it's snowing, it's, minus 40 degrees outside. You've got and I'm not joking, these are conditions I've experienced. You're in not really a trench, but basically you've got a little line of snow to keep you covered, and you have to pull the trigger guard off just so that you can use those big mitts and be able to defend yourself. Yeah, not pleasant at all. And then let's look at our final category. Getting prisoners to do anything, let's start with that, much less military drill. If prisoners were disciplined in the first place, they wouldn't be in prison because they'd know the laws. And yes, I understand crimes of passion take place. You're in the wrong mood, you come home, you find your significant other with someone who isn't you in an intimate position. Yeah, people snap in that situation. I understand. You get jumped by a gang and you're just trying to defend yourself. Yeah, some bad things are going to happen. But a lot of these guys are in there for dealing drugs, for possession of a weapon. Just because you have a weapon doesn't mean you know how to use it. And in a lot of places in the world, it's illegal to have one. So like I said, you've already demonstrated you can't obey the rules. That's why they have to lock you up and keep you away from society. And let's not forget the sexual assaulters, the regular assaulters, people that have no respect for body autonomy. Even the best drill sergeant, and I've got a few in my mind, would not be able to motivate them. They're there to serve whatever term that you give them to get time off their prison sentence. And imagine that as your motivator. You're just sitting there and, once I get through these 12 months, then I'm free. And then I can go back to weapons, drugs, and whatever other offenses you may decide to line up. These are terrible ideas. Yes, it's hard to get people to volunteer, especially during peacetime. Just to test the waters out, I was talking to my daughter because she's 10. And I was showing her some of the nicer examples of military jobs. And I was saying, you want to go to university, if you went through this, your university would be paid for, and then you'd work for them for a bit. And she actually wants to be a doctor. So they protect doctors pretty well in the military. It's not like MASH where they're being shelled every week. They usually put them under pretty darn good defenses. There are bad situations, but let's be honest. But she immediately rejected out of hand the idea of getting that education. Why? My daughter's not stupid. She inherited a little bit of my intelligence. And yeah, she made the right decision for her, and I will support that. I was just floating the idea. Again, nobody really wants to volunteer to go serve a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5, 7, whatever it may be that you have to do so that you can get free school. And that's a powerful motivator as well. I'm here so I can get my education and get, my life underway. Prison time, not effective. Mercenaries, in a pinch, if you're desperate. And random people you have off the street, you can't motivate them to do the same thing at a rally or not even a rally, at a rock concert, somewhere that they are motivated to go, much less the military. So let's abandon this idea of seeking unwilling combatants, except in cases of absolute emergency, which, depending on how you look at the Russian Crimean situation, may be what you see it as. But again, your motivational factor is just not there when you don't have volunteer troops. Volunteer troops, they're there for patriotism. And as Oscar Wilde famously said, patriotism is the virtue of the vicious. I'm no longer patriotic. I live in this country because I realize it's the best place in the world for me to get the care, the treatment, and the people that I need to be around. Care and treatment, I'm getting a little older, so I realize how important it is to have such things. But I'll be honest, when I was there, I was doing it because I wanted the experience. I wanted to know what these people went through. And when I was in, yeah, there were miserable points. Absolutely miserable. Going into the gas hut, not very fun. Throwing grenades, not very fun, especially when there's somebody there to throw you over the wall in case you drop the grenade. This is a real thing. Think I'm lying? Go ask somebody who's been in the military. They'll be happy to tell you that is a real thing. Food? Food is let me just say nobody is there for the food, but I've had very good food. The worst food is called box lunches, which is literally assembled by local volunteers. It's like 2 slices of white bread with the thinnest slice of whatever it's supposed to be, whether turkey or ham or roast beef, so small that the animal never even noticed it being carved off. Usually cheese or mayonnaise put on top. And we always joke it's little old ladies doing it because they have that knife skill to put the barest skim of butter or mayonnaise or whatever it was. I could not tell you honestly. Terrible. Then on base, you have caterers. Not much better than a boxed lunch, but still better depending on the caterer. And I mean, yeah, think of your worst high school experience. That's about what we were getting paid. Or sorry, that's what we were being fed. So you get a bunch of slop on your plate, but it keeps you full. And it keeps you running because you need lots of energy. Up from that, you get your MREs, meal ready to eat, or whatever cool acronym they've come up with them now. Those were a mixed bag. Some were outstanding. When I was there, they just came out with macaroni and cheese. That was like the one in demand. Everybody wanted it. Like, you could trade your meals back and forth. If you had macaroni and cheese, you could have anything. You could have your beef stroganoff, which was like hamburger with a mushroom sauce on it. The worst one was beans and wieners. I understand. They're trying to keep the costs down because these things do get expensive. But yeah, if you had the beans and wieners, you weren't trading for nothing. The cool thing is they had, I imagine they don't have peanut butter anymore, and honey, and they were in a little tube, kind of like toothpaste. I always used to keep those in my breast pocket because when you're out in the field, you want a little energy boost or something, just take that, squeeze the tube a little bit, and you just got pure honey in your mouth. Mother Nature's food itself. They were pretty good. And the best meals, bar none, were the flying kitchens. Military cooks actually coming out. The guys trained, ready to go. They would serve up a platter like you would not believe. So when people say, oh, in the military, the food is bad, yeah, if you get the box lunch or the caterers, it's not very pleasant. But the MREs, as long as you have some way to heat it, and the flying kitchens, who are the real military staff, the food is good. So that's one of those things, yeah, most of the time, you're going to be getting the box lunches and you're going to be getting the caterers. So food doesn't necessarily motivate you. And I imagine if you are one of the, former convicts, or if you are one of the mercenaries probably have to pay for their own food. They're definitely not going to be splurging there. And it's a real easy way to motivate someone to put good food in their belly. My grandfather fought Rommel all through Africa, and then he went into the invasion of Italy. And he said, you would be surprised. The Salvation Army was the only ones that they would come crawling right out to the trenches with a hot cup of coffee, and whether it was a packet of biscuits or whatever it was, they were the ones there. All the USOs and all that wouldn't come near them. The Salvation Army were the ones that came out. And just that little cup of coffee would be the best thing in the world that they have. See, it's that easy to motivate volunteer troops. But people that you're saying, you have to go out there, they have no incentive to perform. They have no incentive to be the best that they can be. Especially criminals. I mean, I don't know how you look at somebody who, robbed a bank and, unalived several people in the process, hand them an automatic or semi-automatic weapon and said, right, you're going to be shooting 20 rounds into that target there. And you have to hit your grouping, which means it all has to be in, 6 inches? I forget. The same token. Everybody has to do that. I did it without my glasses. But imagine handing that to somebody who's, an SAer or somebody who's already, done horrible crimes. And you know what? Sergeants know who they're dealing with. They figure you out pretty early. They figure out people are motivated by different things. Heard a story recently. Sergeant came up to his platoon, and there was one guy never did anything wrong. He was always doing everything, and then the sergeant came up with mail, and it's the same thing as always. They call it, Smith, Fletcher, Luchman Singh. I'm not lying. There was a guy in my platoon named Luchman Singh. Then he came to this guy and, we don't have a Gord in my platoon. And the guy who never did anything but wrong said, Sergeant, that's me. The guy got extra duties because he was trying too hard to remain invisible. That was just the sergeant's way of showing him, yeah, even if you do everything perfect, we're going to remind you that we're in charge. Our corporal, because we didn't have a sergeant in charge of us in training camp, he tried to figure out who had been a cadet and who didn't. He did a pretty good job. With me, he wasn't sure because I purposely went in with the idea that I was learning everything from scratch. I polished my boots regularly. I did everything the same as everything else, but that's why he wasn't sure, because I picked up on a lot of things relatively quickly, but I still acted like a newborn numpty. But you see, my stories, you hear them, you can hear that passion, the love for what I was doing. Not, oh my God, this. Yes, I laugh at myself for being stupid for volunteering, but that's another story. With that, we hope you enjoyed this episode of the Silverlight Show. If you did, please like, share, subscribe. Don't forget to hit the bell notification down in the comment section, so that way you can be notified every time we have a new episode of the Silverlight Show. We hope you have a fantastic day.